Yeah. Okay, we are back in action. Advocate Arendse, may we proceed together with Mr. Honorable Sols.
Chair, I just want clarity quickly around our seating arrangement. My seat is occupied by MP from the Economic Freedom Fighters. I didn't want to bring it to you, so I showed courtesy and brought it to the leadership. But now I'm not listened to, so now I'm bringing it to the House. I can't be putting my seat here.
You know, I know Honorable Malema to be a very sociable
And maybe it's only when it comes to me.
and kind neighbor.
And maybe it's only when it comes to me.
So may I just request you to apply the laws of good neighborliness?
No, Chair, was never brought to our attention.
Hold
on, there's no problem.
Yeah.
It was never brought to attention. Ask your DSG.
Yeah, DSG didn't tell me. I didn't know there was a problem.
Thought the commander is very strict. There's no glitch.
Now we'll deal with it.
All right.
Also, you feel relegated there. You are in the lower divisions.
Are we sorted now?
Yeah, no. I understand that there is.
May I take my seat next to
I understand
the commander?
that
And
is good
my seat will never
neighborliness.
be occupied again.
Yeah.
All right.
That proximity is good for you.
No.
Okay. Thank you so much. Advocate, are we ready?
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, welcome back. Welcome back, Mr. Paul O'Sullivan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we establish if he is not willing to use the hearing aid? Because part of what we've observed is that he takes time to hear some of the questions. Hence, he was advised to use the device in front of him. So can you establish if he is not willing to use it?
I'm going to try it, Chairman, but I'm not sure it will work, and I'll explain to you why.
Okay.
The year before last, somebody tried to murder me. And when that happened, I was left hospitalized due to what they call TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. And as a result, it's not the volume of the noise. It's my ability to understand the words that are coming into my ears. And I'm happy to share, without going into too much detail, I'm happy to share a photograph in private and the medical report, which explained what happened to my brain. It didn't affect the functionalities of my brain other than the hearing. So sometimes if a person talks clearly and slowly, I can make out what they're saying. But if the voice is distorted or too loud, I can't hear what they're saying. I can hear noise, but I can't make out what the words are. So that's why sometimes I have to ask people to, and those that know me are used to it. I say, what did he say? You know, and unfortunately, that's the way it is. They never caught the person that tried to kill me, but I'm still living with the whatever happened about it. So I must just go like this. Or how must I do it?
Now you can hear silence.
No, I can hear you, Chairman.
Oh, you hear me now. Okay. Advocate Arendse.
Honorable Chair, may I proceed?
Excuse me, Chair. Shouldn't the earpiece be turned in? It doesn't look like it's fitted properly. It's on the side of his.
Yeah, you can get closer and help.
I must, what?
Can someone help him?
Who said that?
No, Chair, Mr. Ramano deserves a
He can't
suspension.
hear.
Shit.
Honorable Pambo, you see Honorable Souls is all smiles. I can see Honorable Souls is happy now.
Seniority prevailed, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much for the understanding.
No, it's
Advocate Arendse,
It's correct, Chair. Seniority is prevailing.
May I proceed, Chair? Thank you. Mr. O'Sullivan, are you ready? Yeah.
Oh, good, thank you.
Thank you. Just to recap and maybe to summarize from the line of questioning about your credentials as a police reservist trainer and more particularly as a lecturer, because you said you lectured in subjects of police administration, crime investigation, criminal law, and also the Constitution, and probably the most important part of our Constitution, which is human rights. Yes, the Bill of Rights and human rights is the same thing. But you accept that you didn't have any formal training or qualifications to give lectures or to teach people in these subjects.
As I said, I went on a trainer's course. Now,
Is that the one in Paul?
yes, and the manuals, if you put them on a table, they would probably sit up to about there, and there would be about 30 books or 20 books, a lot of them, and there were different colors depending on the subject. And the trainer was how to take people through those manuals.
So you went on train the trainer course,
Correct.
and were you accredited for that?
I was issued a certificate that I was authorized to provide this training.
And who paid for this training?
It was the government, obviously, that paid for it.
The police.
Yes.
And you volunteered this training. You didn't get.
I was asked to go on the course. They were looking for people that would go on the course, and I was asked, and I went on it.
Okay. Now, I just want to just ask some questions about your entry into this country. So it wasn't first time in 1989. You had been here previously.
Oh yes, I've been.
When did you first come into South Africa?
I can't remember the year, but it would have been in the 70s as a tourist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember going to Kruger Park. I remember staying, some of it you can still remember. I remember staying at the Fig Tree Hotel in Nelspruit, which was 7 Rand a night, or 7 Rand 50 if you had breakfast. So it's a long time ago. And I enjoyed it. I came here for holidays. And I probably came once or twice a year for holidays.
And did you visit what was then Rhodesia before it became Zimbabwe?
I did, indeed, yes.
And what was your purpose for going to then Rhodesia?
I spent a 2-month holiday at a place called, it's now called Wangi, it was then called Wanki, which was a very large game park. We cruised on the Kariba Dam, we went fishing on the Kariba Dam. Yeah.
You didn't interact there with the Rhodesian police, their special forces, or the army?
None whatsoever, no. Well, when I say none whatsoever, when you went into certain areas, you were forced to interact with them because they used to have roadblocks and things. So, yeah, you had that interaction. But I never had any official interaction.
Yeah, no, I mean even unofficial, because often in the kind of undercover covert world, these things are never official. They are unofficial.
Yes, no, I never had any unofficial interaction. My interaction would have been, for example, you get stopped at a roadblock and they search your car, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Now, I shared with you, and we will make this letter or a copy of this letter available to the committee, the Honourable Committee. It's a letter which I shared with you.
Yes.
Now during the lunch break. It's dated the 23rd of November 1982. And it's addressed to a Mr. S.S. van der Merwe. Initials are quite unfortunate. And S.S. van der Merwe, Director General, Department of Internal Affairs. And the author of this letter is D.W. Watterson, MP. Now, I do because, well, not because I'm a bit older than most in this room, but I do remember a member of Parliament, Watterson. Do you know, or did you know a Mr. Watterson?
It's not a name that I remember. So unfortunately, I don't know or did not know Mr. Watson. But in one of the documents there, the name Frank Martin was mentioned. Frank Martin spent some time in the
Yeah, I'll get to
you
Frank
can
Martin.
please speak closer to the microphone.
Sorry, Chair.
Closer to the microphone, Mr. Paulo Sullivan.
So Mr. Sullivan, this letter reads, and you've got a copy of the letter. It's from Mr. Watterson to Mr. van der Merwe, who was then the DG of Internal Affairs. Dear Sir, enclosed herewith are documents for a Mr. P.R. O'Sullivan, who holds a Republic of Ireland passport, but has been brought up largely in England and now wishes to settle permanently in South Africa. I first met Mr. O'Sullivan in the UK in an ex-servicemen's club with Mr. Frank Martin, senior MEC in Natal, about 2 years ago. He was very keen to settle in South Africa. We were both impressed with him as a suitable settler for South Africa. Intelligent, well-educated, and of a very conservative political attitude. I believe he would be a very useful addition to the white community of our country. Upon conversation with him, it appears that he has voluntarily undergone military service overseas and is very familiar with modern armored weaponry. If allowed to remain in South Africa, he would be very willing to undertake military service. I regret having to worry you with another of these immigrant cases, but I believe this one is well worth the effort. His visitor's permit expires at the end of January 1983. Therefore, it would be appreciated if the matter could be handled with some expedition. Kind regards and best wishes for Christmas and the New Year. This is written on the 23rd of November 1982. What is it? Sorry, Gilbert. Sorry. And there's some handwriting, and it seems to have been received around about the 26th of November 1982. Then there is a handwritten letter which is dated, is that 20 November 1982, and it comes from you, and I think you confirmed that this was your handwriting, and this is what it says. Dear sir, I know that you are very busy and may I ask Ms. Mkhize to read it, please.
Dear sir, I know that you are very busy, and I'm sorry to have to take up your time. However, I am in a predicament and can think of no one else to turn to. The last time I came to South Africa, nearly 2 years ago, I obtained a work permit without any bother at all. I foolishly assumed that the same would apply on this occasion. I was offered good employment by Mr. Jim Powell, whom I know from the UK. I sold my house in London and came to South Africa with the intention of settling here. My fiance is due here in January, when we hope to get married. Alas though, my work permit was refused, and without a work permit, I cannot start work and apply for permanent residency. This puts me in a bit of a quandary, I think. Is that what it says? As I so want to stay in this country, which I love so much and believe in it, as there are few countries left in the world that is not riddled with communist-inspired unions and unsettlement. I so believe that this is still a good Christian country, and as a Christian, I feel it is the ideal environment to raise a family. I have already applied for a course in Afrikaans, as I want to completely integrate with the South African way of life. Sir, it would break my heart if I now have to return to the UK. I beg you humbly to speak on my behalf to someone in a position to consider me as an immigrant. I hope you will forgive me for troubling you in this way. But when I met you in the UK with Frank Martin, you appeared to me to be a reasonable gentleman that would listen to reason. I enclose for your information the details concerning my application that was refused. Here are some details about myself and copies of my certificates and references. I will pray that you will find an ear somewhere that will listen to you on my behalf, as it means so much to me. I have also sent a copy of this letter to Frank Martin, who has been a friend of mine for some years now. Humbly yours, P.R. O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Advocate Mkhize. So this letter appears to have been addressed to, I think it was Mr. Watterson, Member of Parliament. I'm not sure whether at the time he was a National Party or United Party MP. So Mr. O'Sullivan, is this accurate? Is this true?
Well, Chairman, the top part of it, the first time I saw this letter was, I think, last week. Somebody showed it to me. It had been published on social media by a person by the name of Colleen Makubela from MK Party, and along with a lot of defamatory comments. And the bottom part of it, which is a handwritten note, the circumstances surrounding that were that Frank Martin was a member of the club that I used to attend in the UK, which was an ex-servicemen's club. And Frank Martin wanted me to come and work and live in South Africa at that time. And I can't remember exactly what took place because we're talking 40-something years ago. I'm being interrupted or not? Am I allowed to finish? Okay. So it was like 42 years ago. I was in my 20s, you know, and what happened was Frank Martin said, you can get this position. It would be a very good position. I can't even remember what the position entailed, but you would have to fill in an application form. And actually he filled the form in for me. And he said, you need to write this letter. And he told me what to write, and I wrote the letter. And after that, I never heard about it again. But I was here. I came here on a regular basis. In fact, I subsequently got married in 1984. And I had my honeymoon here. I never sold any house, of course, as was stated there. I wrote what Frank told me to write 42 years ago. And after that, I can't recall what happened about the matter. But I'd never seen, and I don't recall having met this fellow, Watterson. If I met him, I don't recall meeting him. It's not a name that I know.
He says your handwritten letter appears to be addressed to him, although he's not mentioned in the handwritten letter, because he then references that he met with you in the UK in an ex-serviceman club with Mr. Frank Martin about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't recall that. Frank Martin was definitely a member of my club. Frank Martin was in a prisoner of war camp with my late father. And
Honorable Novalo.
No, thanks, Chair. I couldn't hear properly. You spoke about Colleen of the MK party. I just missed that part. If you can explain what he meant.
He says the letter that is being referred to was posted on social media by a certain Miss Colleen Makubela from the MKP.
Okay.
along with a lot of defamatory comments.
Along with a lot of defamatory comments. Can we proceed? Okay.
So can we accept that this letter that was addressed by Mr. Watterson to the DG then of Internal Affairs in 1982, it appears to be an authentic letter.
It certainly appears to be, but as I've said, the first time I've seen that letter, I think it was either last week or the week before when somebody forwarded to me and showed me the post on whatever it is, either Facebook or TokTik or what's this other one called? Twitter. It was on one of these, and the person, it may be somebody that's not Colleen Macubella, but the person that appeared to have been posting it was using the name Colleen or Colleen Macubella from the MKP and stating that I can't remember the defamatory words now, but this is a racist pig and he needs to go or something like that. I can't remember the word.
Okay, I'm not really concerned about that. I'm sure the honorable members from the MKP will ask you about that. What I want to know is whether following Watterson MP's letter to the then Director General of what was Internal Affairs, we regarded then as notorious, but he writes to him and he says that your visitor's permit was expiring at the end of January 1983. The letter is written in November 1982, essentially seeking a favor to either extend your visitor's permit or, in fact, requesting that one can infer from the letter, be accorded some permanent status. So my question to you is, after you wrote the letter in November 1982, on the 20th of November, it looks like to Mr. Watterson, did your status change after January 1983?
No, in fact, Chairman, if I recall correctly, I was on a vacation in November in South Africa. I wasn't here until January the next year. And I met with Frank Martin, who I knew, because, as I previously stated, he was in a prisoner of war camp with my late father. And we used to call him Uncle Frank because we were children when he used to visit. And while I was on vacation in 1982, he said there was some position, a very important position for me in the building services or whatever department or something like that in the Natal province. And I could get a good job. And would I like the job? And, I was 20-something years old. It sounded like a good idea at the time. I said, yeah, it'll be all right. But I mean, I have a tourist permit, They call it a visitor's permit. And
but why do you record in your letter that you are in a predicament and can think of no one else to turn to? If you were on a visitor's permit, which was now going to expire in January 83, then presumably you would just leave before the visitor's permit expires and you go back to the UK or Ireland.
In fact, I spent 3 weeks here, not 3 months. But when you enter the country, and it's still the case today, you're given a visitor's permit for 90 days. So I came here for holiday. You get a visitor's permit for 90 days. I met with Frank in Durban, and Frank offered me a position. Actually, I didn't meet him in Durban. I met him in Pietermaritzburg. And he offered me a position, an engineering job, and it would be good pay. And I said, yeah, but I don't have a work permit or anything like that. He said, I filled in these forms. He filled them in for me. He said, just sign this and here, write the letter in your own handwriting. And he told me what to write, so I wrote it. And as I say, it's 42 years ago. I can't even remember. I would have completely forgotten about it if somebody hadn't have sent it to me last week.
Well, did you forget? You forgot to mention it in your evidence and in your affidavit. Didn't you think it was material?
No, I didn't think it was material.
You worked here according to your own letter. You had obtained a work permit without any bother, and you foolishly assumed, I'm reading from your letter, that the same would apply on this occasion. You were offered good employment by Mr. Jim Powell, whom you knew from the UK. You sold your house in London with the intention of settling here. Now you write and you say you're in a predicament because you're sitting with a visitor's permit and you had intention of going back.
Chairman, as I said, I came on holiday. I just wrote what Frank suggested I should write. I cannot remember now what happened 42 years ago. But, you know, I wrote what Frank suggested I should write and I gave it to him. I didn't send it anywhere. He handled it. And this letter that's attached to it, I see it for the first time.
But this seems to be your predicament recorded in your own letter.
So I wrote what
Yes,
Frank suggested I write.
from your letter. Alas, though my work permit was refused, and without a work permit, I cannot start work and apply for permanent residence.
I don't.
So this is the predicament you say, because this puts me in a bit of a quandary, as I want to stay in this country, which I love so much, and I believe is one of the few countries in the world that is not riddled with communist-inspired unions and what is it? Yeah, and then you go on to say that this is a good Christian country. So this is an appeal to a politician to help you to obtain a work permit and permanent residence. This is not a casual visitor who's coming here, the visitor's permit expires and now you know you must leave the country.
I'd left the country before that letter even was typed, because I was in Durban. I'd had 2 weeks holiday. I had another week to go, I think. And Frank suggested, I can get you a job here. You can become a resident here and whatnot. And it sounded like a good idea at the time. I was, as I said, I was 20-something years old. I'm 70 now, you know. So he did the forms and he suggested I write the letter. He told me what to write and he said, I'll handle it. Off you go back. We didn't have mobile phones and stuff then. I never heard from him again. In fact, I heard from him again, I think 2-3 months later. And he said, no, that position was filled by somebody else. So it's a, what do you call it? Storm in a teacup. And it was 42 years ago. But there's absolutely, and I mean, I've just read again now that handwritten letter. It says,
So what are you saying, that you were not in fact in a predicament or in a quandary?
Not in a
You
predicament.
wrote what he wrote, what he told you to.
Yes, at the time I was fully employed.
So you wrote an untruth in a letter addressed to the Director General of this country in 1982 in order to influence that Director General to issue you either with a work permit or permanent residence.
Well, I won't say it was untruth. Frank said, if you write this letter.
Well, why is it not an untruth?
Well, I suppose.
When you now say 50 years later.
It would have been a predicament, I suppose, if I was given the job, but I wasn't given the job. So it became a non-event. But you know, in the 20s, you'll do things that perhaps you wouldn't do. When
Well,
you
it would have
become
been
more mature.
it's a pity that you know, you give this explanation, the extent to which I don't know whether it will persuade anybody, but It's because I disclosed this letter to you and I didn't. I can assure you that I'm not on social media. I didn't pull it from social media, neither did any of my colleagues. I mean, we get this information on good authority. And you didn't disclose it in your affidavit. I think I know that my colleague, Advocate Mkhize, did raise it with you. So, sorry. You raised it with her and said that this has now been brought to my attention.
That's correct.
Yes.
I brought it to her attention last week when it was brought to my attention.
Yeah.
On
Sunday.
Yeah, and I finalized my affidavit, I think on Friday or Saturday. So it was brought to my attention. I said, but there's so much other stuff on social media. Why should we put all that in your affidavit? There's stuff on social media which is completely fake.
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan, I'm always pressed for time, so I don't worry about social media. I want to ask about this letter, because you also write your work permit was refused. In other words, what I'm trying to understand, and you must please help us, is that this is not some casual letter written by a 20-year-old on the advice or guidance of a more senior person, presumably Mr. Frank Martin, or an MP, to say, just write this down. This is serious. You say you had applied for a work permit, but it was refused. And now and your intention is not to holiday here. It is, and I'm paraphrasing your letter, it's to start work and to apply for permanent residence, and for the reasons that you've given. This is a Christian country, don't have these communist unions here. You like the people here. You even want to learn to speak Afrikaans.
Well, unfortunately, if you're offered an opportunity, I thought it would a good opportunity at the time, and I went along with it. The reality of it is, I don't remember getting a work permit or being refused a work permit. I never came to work here in pursuit of that. And I only later, in 1989, which was 7 years later, applied for a residence permit on the basis of being a person of independent means. So I didn't see it as being anything other than that.
Well, we now know from your evidence that we accept that these letters as authentic. Because you see, this changes the reasons why you came to South Africa in 1989. The impression you create in your affidavit and the early part of your evidence is that, in fact, the market or the property market, I forget now, but you can correct me, in the UK had collapsed, and you were looking for business opportunities, and you came to South Africa in 1989. So the impression you create is that you're entirely disinterested in this country, other than this is an opportunity to invest and to make money. You said, no, of course, if you invest, you want to make money. But that's the extent of your interest. Now we read a letter that you wrote to a member of parliament to say, look, I'm in a predicament, I'm in a quandary. This is some 7 years before you eventually came here in 1989. And that you had already applied then for a work permit. You had already applied, and I'm paraphrasing from your letter, for a course in Afrikaans, as I want to completely integrate with the South African way of life. Do you accept that this puts a different narrative or background to why you entered South Africa in 1989?
No, I don't. And the reason for that, Chairman, I didn't just come here to invest and make money. I had been coming here every year for a holiday for many years. And I invested in property here before I took a decision to come and live here. I had already acquired property in 1987, but I didn't apply for permanent residence then. I bought another property in 1988. It was in 1989 that I decided, you know what? I like this country. We must go and live there. And then I applied. And my application was granted.
Yes, but let's deal with that. Was in 1989 and after that. Because unless again you were told to write this and you didn't really mean it, in other words, it's not true. You say, sir, and I quote from your letter, it would break my heart if I now have to return to the UK. You're actually desperate to stay here because, as you say, you're in a quandary, you're in a predicament. And then you go on to say, I beg you humbly to speak on my behalf to someone in a position to consider me as an immigrant. So in 1982, November, you expressed a desire. You pleaded, you want to stay here as an immigrant. You didn't want to return to the UK or to England.
It was probably an exaggeration. The reality of it is,
So you exaggerated.
in that letter,
You wrote some untruths.
I wouldn't say
You
it's untrue.
exaggerated.
I exaggerated.
Can we take Honorable Nomvalo?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, we just wanted to make a request on record that may the witness, even if it's during lunch or after hours, produce evidence showing that a member of Parliament, Honorable Colleen, posted some defamatory something about him, because we stated on record that our member has never done that. She has never posted anything on any social media platform. But we request that you provide that proof to us, even if you can provide it after today's session. You can ask for your team, from your team, to look for it now.
Can I answer, Chairman?
Yes.
So, Chairman, I don't have social media. Somebody showed it to me on a phone. And it looked to, I mean, from what I can remember, it showed the person as being Colleen Makubela. And that's why I can't remember if it was on Twitter or TokTik or whatever. I can't remember.
It's TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Somebody showed it to me. And yeah, I can't go back and look for something that I don't have.
The person is from the MKP.
And I think I pointed this out earlier, that it appeared to be a person called Colleen or Colin Makubela from the MK party. So yeah, if I can't find that, then I can't find it, but it appeared to me.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do the best I can, but I don't have social media. So yeah.
Honorable Nomvalo, your question has been responded to.
No, unfortunately, Chair, he's not sure of what he's talking about. Then I think we are helpless under the circumstances, because our member has never posted anything of that nature. Hence, we make a request that he provides proof to us, because our member is even ready to depose to an affidavit. She has never posted anything of that
You
nature.
confirm to him that you have a member called Colleen Makubela.
Do have a member called the former chief whip of the MK party. I think she's all known to us, but she has never posted anything of that nature. So I think it's wrong and unfair for the witness to say something that is untrue about her while she is not even here to respond for herself.
Honorable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. I guess this issue of casting aspersions without evidence, I always question witnesses. We had witnesses last week. When you ask for evidence, they are evasive. Now, Mr. O'Sullivan say he saw from someone on his phone. Now, it's a hearsay. You saw that alone. We want evidence here. Because now we are painting someone, and without any substantiated evidence to the honorable members here. We can't deal with gossip here. Thank you, Chair.
Can you just say you disagree with that statement and we move forward? Honorable Malema.
No, Chair. They're raising a serious issue. If the witness is not sure, instead of you asking them to say they disagree with the statement, you should ask the witness to withdraw that. Because he cannot just come here and then say thumbs up things here. If he's not sure, the only way to close this matter is that he withdraws that and then we move forward. Because he's not sure if it's Honorable Colin who posted that. And to cast aspersion on our fellow member and then we just pass like that, it is unfair. So if the witness is not prepared to produce any evidence to that effect and is not sure, can we please request him to withdraw that allegation?
Chairman, I'm going to go back to the person that showed me and see if I can get a screen grab or something of that nature. And if I can't get that, I'll withdraw the statement I made. Is that acceptable?
No, the statement is withdrawn. What you are sharing with us now is information, it's not evidence.
Okay, the statement is withdrawn.
It only becomes evidence when you can substantiate it. Advocate Arense.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So, Mr. O'Sullivan, your application for a work permit had been refused.
I don't even remember.
Well, that's what you say in your letter.
Yes, but I can't, we're talking about 42 years ago. I just can't remember. As good and everything as my memory is, I can't remember what happened 42 years ago.
And you had then given some details of yourself and copies of your certificates and references.
I can't remember.
So can we have sight of these certificates and references that you enclosed with this application at the time?
If we can get them from the person that supplied these documents, I would be happy to do so, but I cannot remember, Chairman, what certificates and application or whatever the case may be. So I really can't assist if I can't remember.
Now, when were you given South African permanent residency?
I think it was 1989, November or December or October. It was late 89.
And at the time, of course, we were then still not a democratic country, and would what you have said in your letter that we discussed, would it have still been the case that you love this country? Because it's a Christian country.
So
They're no communists. Yeah.
Chairman, I loved the country. In 1989, I loved the country because of the nature of the people in the country. And I had some good friends here, and I liked the weather, and there were business opportunities.
Now, I asked you earlier about whether you said you had been to then Rhodesia, but you had no interaction or connection or association with the Rhodesian police or security forces.
Yeah, before we move to Rhodesia, may we take Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I consider the year that which Mr. O'Sullivan became a citizen very important for the proceedings of this ad-hoc committee. It is quite astonishing that he doesn't seem to be remembering anything. Was the SC is trying to bring to his attention a letter where some Mr. Watterson wrote to the Internal Affairs in respect of his application for citizenship in 1982. But he seems not to remember even the fact that they said is going to be useful to the white community in South Africa. I want to propose, Chair, that can the committee take on its accord right to the Director General of the Department of Home Affairs just for a confirmation of the year at which Mr. O'Sullivan became a citizen of the Republic of South Africa, so that we can be able to draw it closer to where may he perhaps made applications to be permanent. Thank you.
Honorable Malema.
Yeah, I fully agree with that suggestion, but also we must be given the motivation why he was given that citizenship. We must check if learning Afrikaans was the only criteria which was followed or what.
Yeah, remember Honorable Watterson at the time also motivated that he will be of good use to the white community in the Republic. So we will write that letter to check what was the motivation that was made for his acquisition of citizenship and inquire whether the Afrikaans qualification was, how important was that Afrikaans qualification? I'm not seeing any further hands, honorable members. My assumption is that you want us to proceed. Are you done with your consultations? The two advocates. You are very quiet today, Advocate Mokhaitz. I miss your voice.
He's agreeing with us, yeah.
Okay, can we proceed?
Mr. O'Sullivan, was Mr. Frank Martin Bureau of State Security operative?
No, Chairman. He was the MEC for transport and horse racing in Natal, what was then called Natal.
So you do remember that clearly?
Yes, he was a friend, but I don't recall this fellow Watterson, and I don't. I've never seen that letter before in my life. By the way, I never said to anybody, "I'll be a useful contribution to the white community." I would never have made such a statement.
But you did?
I didn't.
No, in your handwritten letter.
I did. I don't recall having said that. I don't recall having said that.
You certainly mentioned that you want to learn to speak Afrikaans.
Yeah, I may have said that, but I don't recall having said that I would like to contribute to the white community.
You said you had already applied for a course in Afrikaans and I want to completely integrate with the South African way of life.
Yeah, but did I say that I wanted to contribute to the white community? I wouldn't have said that. And the reason I wouldn't have said that is because I'm firmly anti-racist. So there's no way I would have said, I want to contribute to the white community. It just wouldn't have happened.
Well, you said that you want to completely integrate into the South African way of life. What was the South African way of life in 1982? For us, what we had to have today, and I'm not giving evidence.
Yes.
It's just a fact. Was seemingly light years away, and for most of us, we said it will never happen in our lifetime.
Yes, so I wasn't.
So you were thinking specifically of a white
South African
racist-dominated society at the time, and you wanted to integrate into this way of life by specifically learning to speak Afrikaans, when arguably, I do remember, I'm old enough to remember MP Watterson was one of the English-speaking MPs.
So, in my view, the South African way of life in those days was nice weather, outside activities, boating, swimming,
Braaivleis.
Pardon?
Braaivleis.
All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I was not interested in contributing to, for example, apartheid or anything of that nature. That wouldn't have been anything that I would have been interested in.
No. Mr. Sullivan, that is directly in contradiction to your own handwritten letter, which says that it would break your heart if you were not granted this status because you want to integrate into this society.
So I think,
Then a white-dominated society, apartheid, separate development, forced removals, separate education, group areas, homelands.
Yeah. In my 20s, at that stage of my life, I didn't even understand all of that. What was that? In those days, I didn't understand all of that. I didn't even know the existence of a group areas. Of course, I know about it now. I had no knowledge. I had some knowledge, but I didn't have full knowledge of all the things that were going on. And had I have become a citizen at that stage, I would have helped contribute.
Are you saying you were naive?
Pardon?
Are you saying that you were naive?
No, I'm not saying I was naive. But had I have...
Well, then it's worse.
What do you mean it's worse?
If you can say, I'm young and naive, I didn't really understand politics, I just wanted to do...
I'm not now naive. I thought you meant, are you naive? Then I probably was naive.
Yeah, well, but in 1982, you were already an electrical engineer. You were a learned person, certainly more learned than the average person, I would think, even in England.
Yes, possibly so. But, when you're in your 20s, you have a different view on life as you would have later in life.
So, what I want to drive to is that you were at this stage then recruited.
By who?
By the security agency of this country at the time.
Not a chance. Absolutely none whatsoever. Frank Martin wasn't involved. Actually, I knew Frank Martin very well. He was a train driver before the war. And then during the war, he became a prisoner of war, and he shared space with my late father. And after the war, he got back into driving trains.
But you and then, Mr. Sullivan, sorry, you're not trying to minimize and trivialize what is really a serious situation that a letter is even addressed, which seems to be based on information given, false information, to the Director General of the Interior Ministry of this country at the time. Now you're trivializing, you know, Frank Martin, which is a train driver, met you in the ex-servicemen's club, presumably just to drink beer, and you were a young 20-odd-year-old naive.
I'm not trivializing.
But this is the completely different impression we got from your affidavit, in the early part of your affidavit, and the narrative that you've given us. Certainly, when consulting and when reading it, oh, well, this is a fairly well-heeled, well-educated person coming from the UK. You know, we can't complain when people want to invest their money in our country, buying property, hopefully, you know, creating jobs for our people. But that's not the impression that one now gets when you read this letter and the application for permanent residence or even to become an immigrant.
I don't even remember at the time filling in any forms. So I wrote a 2-page handwritten letter. The typewritten letter I'd never seen before in my life. Yeah, it is what it is.
And you know what also then strikes one, if with looking at your background from this viewpoint and different viewpoint, is within the space of a year you decide to become a police reservist.
I was asked to become a police reservist.
Who is this Major Edwards?
He was the husband of my then secretary. I mean, if I could track him down, I don't even know him now.
Did you not look at his background? Well, it could be, because this is one reads about or sees in a movie. He could have been involved in the security services. He could have been a boss. You remember that word, boss? Bureau of State Security? Yes. So he could have been such an operative.
So his wife was my secretary. He was the station commander at Halfway House Police Station. And this suggestion that I should become a police reservist took place after the democratization process had started in South Africa. And that democratization process is what triggered me to take a decision to apply for permanent residence, because I felt that I didn't want to live in a country where apartheid existed. I took up the opportunity or the request to become a police reservist after Nelson Mandela had been released from prison and the ANC had been unbanned. And I saw opportunities. I thought there will be good opportunities to help make a democratic country. And I played my part. In fact, you can get on the phone now and speak to the erstwhile president, Malema Motlanthe, and ask him who came to see him in Shell House, which was then the headquarters of the ANC. Ask him who came to see him in Shell House to notify him of the existence of a game farm in the Northwest Province where some very strange things were going on. You can phone him and ask him.
Well, I'm not going to do that. I do have a lot of respect for Honorable Mr. Motlanthe. I'm not going to ask you that because I don't want to be distracted from what I'm asking you.
Okay.
Because this could easily fit into the narrative of someone who has infiltrated either the security forces or other intelligence forces in our country, that you would have had such meetings. You would have gone to Shell House. You would have met these important persons whose names you are dropping. But what I want to ask you about, because this is not what you say in your affidavit. Can I take you to paragraph 14 of your affidavit? In 1990, my secretary's husband, a certain Major Edwards in the SAPS, having heard of my background, persuaded me to join the South African Police Reserve. I took the view that if a country is good enough to live in, it's good enough to serve. In 1990, I joined SAPS as a reserve at the halfway house, now Midrand, where I completed training as a detective. As a reservist, I was required to donate approximately 8 hours per week of my time at no cost to the SAPS. Now, this is some 8 years later, after you wrote a letter to a member of parliament at the time, who in turn wrote to the Director General of Internal Affairs, pleading for this young person, this young man, to be given immigrant status. Because it'll break his heart if he must go back to England. He wants to stay here and learn Afrikaans. He wants to integrate with a Christian white community.
I never said I wanted to integrate with the Christian white community.
That's what your letter says, Mr.
No, my letter
I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it
my
is.
letter doesn't say that. I'm
Well,
sorry.
and then I'll be disciplined if I'm misrepresenting what you're saying.
It's a misunderstanding of what I'm saying. I never stated that I wanted to integrate into a Christian white community.
Well, it's clearly to be inferred from what you're saying, from the language that you use. And I don't want to waste further time
Chairman,
by reading back.
At the time I emigrated to the country, I'd completely forgotten about this letter of 8 years or 9 years earlier. It was gone from my mind. In fact, I can't remember the year, but it was either 87 or 88 when my dear Frank Martin, God rest his soul, passed away. And it was the furthest thing from my mind.
You see what will also strike one, and obviously the honorable committee members and members of the public will make up their own minds. But certainly what struck me is that your role as a police reservist and what you did is one of two things. It is highly commendable for the time and effort that you've given to assisting our regular police in doing their law enforcement job. It's either that, or on the other hand, this is most extraordinary for a police reservist to be trained as a detective, to achieve an award for the most arrests, to be trained to do a train-the-trainer course and train 1,000, what did you say, 1,500 other reservists to graduate and to get their certificate, including our honorable president. So you have quite some notable students under your belt. You worked, and I'm looking at paragraph 16. You worked in the fraud unit at the then John Foster Square. You, as you know, was notorious. You lectured. You were elected chairman of the Community Policing Forum, paragraph 17. You formed Johannesburg Watch. So at all times, you were involved in policing. You were close to the action. And of course, by doing so, you're also close to other law enforcement people, intelligence officers involved in law enforcement in our country.
As a police service.
Yes. Because of the extra, I'm saying Those are the extraordinary things you did as a police reservist.
Yeah, Chairman.
I know a very, very good colleague of mine. He's actually one of our best advocates. He's a police reservist. You know, at night, in his own time, he goes with the police and they do neighborhood watch, they do patrols and all that. That takes, and his life is often in danger. He's been shot a few times or shot at a few times. That's the extent of what he does. And he's a highly intelligent person.
I was doing the same. I was going out on the streets with police officials, doing crime prevention work, attending to crime scenes, carrying out investigations because I was a detective, and making the necessary arrests. I worked with full-time detectives. At all times, I had no dealings whatsoever with the intelligence services. The crime intelligence, in my knowledge, was something that happened somewhere else. I had no involvement in it whatsoever. Later that changed. After the year 2000 or after the 2002 or 2003, I started to understand what crime intelligence was and where it fitted into the big picture. But up until then, I had no idea about it.
Now, it's only because I am old enough to remember this. But do you know, do you recall that the same Mr. Powell that you referred to was in fact a security policeman?
I don't know who Powell is. That name I don't remember. I have no knowledge of who that person is.
It was referenced in the letter.
Yeah, but I have no knowledge of who that person is.
And do you know that he was involved in at the time in KwaZulu-Natal? I don't want to unfairly, unnecessarily, or in a defamatory way attribute it to Nkatha, but at the time he was connected with Nkatha in KZN. Were you not aware of that?
None whatsoever. In fact, until I saw this, because I never kept a copy of any letter back 42 years ago until I saw this last week. If you'd have said to me, who's Jim Powell? I have no idea. No idea whatsoever.
So before we move on or forward, Mr. O'Sullivan, is it your evidence today that you've at no stage ever been involved with the security police, either the one before 1994, before 1992, when things started to change in this country, or afterwards?
As God is my witness, I was never involved with the security police in South Africa. And I'm stating that again under oath, never once in my life was I involved. And if anybody wants to make inquiries at Boyson's police station, and by the way, I have a lot more press cuttings than what you've seen there. There's another document there. I can't remember the page, but it's included. And if you have a look at it, Chairman, either just before or just after that picture of handing Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa the award. I'm just looking for it now. I'll give you the page number. By the way,
well, we know, and I'm sure that the honourable members would have read your
Chairman,
affidavit.
Important evidence. If one looks at page 55
of your affidavit,
no,
of the
annexes, A55. Okay,
that's after the.
It's after the page
after
that
the
shows
picture with the.
Yes.
the Honorable President.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an article that appeared in the Citizen newspaper in 1977. It says millions in forged post orders claim. And it refers to forged 100 Rand postal orders, which were circulating in Johannesburg. And we got approached at the fraud unit. We got approached. And by the way, that would have then no longer been John Forster Square, it would have been Johannesburg Central Police Station. We got approached with a view to trying to find out where these forged postal orders were coming from. And I spent time, my time and energy, and we tracked down who was printing and issuing these forged postal orders. And this details the court case in respect of that. And if you go back to the page before the letter that we dealt with for, which was 53, if we go to page 52, that's an article dated July 27, 1995, Chairman. It's the Southern Courier, which is a newspaper that deals with the southern suburbs of Johannesburg. And the headline is The Highs and Lows of Drugs. And if you have a look there, you can see the whole story is about people that are buying drugs on the street. And if you look at the bottom of the story, it says the technical aspects of this article were prepared for the Southern Courier by Detective Sergeant Paul O'Sullivan of the SAPS. Seen in the picture is Detective Sergeant O'Sullivan together with female constable Vermaak making an arrest of 2 suspects with dagga and cocaine. That's far removed from being involved with intelligence services.
Well, before I ask Honourable Chair for my colleague Advocate Mkhize just to take over for a short while, I want to please be excused. I just want to say that it's also the perfect front to have these awards, meet all these important people, current president, former president, drop their names, and to continue some other undercover covert work. So on the face of it, yes, I've said to you it's impressive, and one can get a lot of credit for that kind of work. But it doesn't dispel or put pay to any theory that you have been or are involved also with other intelligence activities.
Is that a question? The reality of the situation is, I've stated a few minutes ago, and I'm stating again, while I was a police reservist, I was never involved in any way, shape, or form with any intelligence activity of any nature whatsoever. And since living in this country, I have not been involved in any way, shape, or form with any intelligence activity whatsoever. And that is it in a nutshell.
Honorable James.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just a bit concerned because it would appear that the witness has done quite a lot under the previous dispensation. We know that reservists are only allowed to operate in the visible policing environment. Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, you did fraud, you worked in the fraud unit, you made the most arrests, you were on active crime scenes. Do you have anyone that can vouch for this? Like a commander that you must have worked under because you were doing duties of a SAPS member?
Chairman, the regulations changed. In those days, a reservist could work with a unit, whichever unit he went to work with. And I was asked to work with the detective branch at Boyson's police station, which I did. And after an incident that took place in 1996, where I was shot, I was no longer able to carry out possible physical work relating to if you had to arrest somebody that became violent or something like that. So I then changed. I was said, you know, you're very good at what you're doing. You can go and work in the fraud unit. And that's what I did. And as for going back 30 years to find somebody that may be able to come and tell you, I can look, but it might not be that I can find somebody today or tomorrow that can come and say, by the way, he did this and that and what. But I can try.
So your title was detective sergeant.
I was a detective sergeant, Chairman, and that article that I just referred you to refers to me as a detective inspector, but that was what do you call it? A misunderstanding by a journalist. I was a detective sergeant. That's it, short and sweet.
Were you a reservist detective sergeant?
Correct. Now, the regulations in the police today for the reservists are different than where they were in the 90s. Now, the reservists, from what I understand, are in uniform. I worked, by the way, when I finished working as a detective sergeant at Johannesburg Central Police Station, I then relocated to the border police.
Chair, can I just wrap up?
OR Tambo Airport. And I was working in the border police for 2 years.
Honorable James, may you?
So just to wrap up, just so that I can be clear on this. So you are a forensic investigator, meaning that you dig deeper, you get information, and you are not able to tell this committee and give us evidence in terms of the time you worked as a SAPS detective. Am I correct? You are not able to give us anything that can justify everything that you have told this committee here today.
No, Chairman, that's not.
You're not. Did you have a force number?
Yes.
So you can't go back onto the system and track your force number and give us some form of evidence that this is what you've done, because even we can go and query that.
Chairman, I don't have access to the system. My force number.
No, we'll get it. That's fine.
Sorry,
Thanks.
I'm being asked a question and then I'm being given the answer. On page 53, A53, Chairman, there's a letter there dated 26th of June, 1997. And it says, Detective Sergeant Paul Robert O'Sullivan, force number 0245-296-1. There's my force number.
Thank you.
You know, anybody can go on the system through the necessary channels and find out. I was a police reservist until Jackie Celebi cancelled my work as a police reservist.
Yeah, we will come to the Jackie Levy matter. May his soul rest in peace. Honorable Matthys.
Also on a point of clarity, when Mr. O'Sullivan joined this police reservist, were you a South African citizen then?
Chairman, I wasn't a South African citizen.
That's fine.
I was a permanent resident. But in those days, the regulations required that you be either a citizen or a permanent resident.
You were a citizen at that time.
No, Chairman, I was a permanent resident.
Mm.
The regulations were changed in 2000 or 2000.
Mr. Sullivan, you answered that already. And then just on the second point, Chair, so we need to do back office work here and get the regulations of what was happening with the police reservist unit during that, so we can just be workshopped on that, because I don't know which country would allow a non-South African to be this involved in our systems and having
let's
access
not
to
debate the
information.
matter.
Thank
I think
you. No, we're not, just so we make sure we
the
follow.
point has been made. Abazel.
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan. We are at paragraph 18 of your statement. And we are still paragraph 18, page 7. And we are just about to wrap up your time as a reservist. At paragraph 18, this is now 10 years since you started as a reservist, and you were based at the airport, Johannesburg, at the time it was Johannesburg International Airport.
That's correct, Jim.
And you say in your statement that you were at that point part of a national team in the border police of Johannesburg. What was your specific role?
So the role of the border police, we worked together at the airport in 2 or 3 areas. One area was to prevent drug trafficking through the international port. Another area would be to make sure that people weren't coming through with forged documentation, for example, a fake passport, people that were involved in human trafficking. So actually, I was very successful in helping to stamp out human trafficking. We achieved quite a bit of work there. The other area we worked on was counterfeit goods. What's that noise?
We can continue.
Is it just in my ear? Or?
Yes.
There would be importation of counterfeit goods. So we would go and do random checks together with the customs officers to identify counterfeit goods.
Could you name the specific successes that you were able to achieve in that period?
Yeah, we had quite a few successes. Chairman, may I refer to some documents to help expand on that? I would like to go to page A62. By the way, at that stage, I was a police reservist and I was in the group executive for aviation security.
Yes, but I haven't reached the point at which you're an executive at AXA. I'm still just finalizing the point at which you were a reservist, specifically at the airport.
Yes, so we would have made quite a few arrests on the human trafficking side. In particular, labor human trafficking. We would have made quite a few arrests on drug trafficking. We made quite a few arrests on people with forged travel documents. And I'm talking about passports. You would have what we call returned traffic individuals. So some people that we trafficked, they knew they were being trafficked and they wanted to be trafficked and they were trafficked for labor. And certain countries I don't want to name the countries in case I'm accused of defaming them, but certain countries in the Eastern Asia area, they would traffic individuals here who would come voluntarily so that they could then go and work in sweatshops or in spaza shops out in the bush.
Yeah.
And they would spend 3 years here. Their passports would be taken by their employers. And when they left, you could see that they'd overstayed their visa or their visitor's permit. And they couldn't leave the country now because their passport, they would hide it in their luggage. And they would go to the embassy and say that they came on such and such a date and their passport was stolen. And they would be issued with what's known as a temporary travel document.
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Valid for a one-way trip.
Thank you. You mentioned that at the time, as a reservist, it was volunteer work, and you were not receiving any pay for the work that you were doing. What work were you doing at the time that was not volunteer work, your full-time job? What was your job at the time?
When I started working at the airport.
At the airport, yes.
In the border police.
Yes.
I was involved in property development.
You're in property development, okay. You also mentioned at paragraph 18 that you worked in excess of 40 hours a week, which is the equivalent of what one would work in full-time employment. How did you manage to work 40 hours a week on volunteer work and still run your own property development entity?
Yes, so it's quite easy to explain, Chairman. In those days, I was a lot younger than I am now. I was also hyperactive. So I would start work early in the morning, finish in the afternoon, and then go and put 5 hours in at the airport. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I used to work because I enjoyed the work. So, and I say average, I didn't work 40 hours every week, but sometimes I was able to work in excess of 40 hours. When I was having the opportunity to do so, I would do it.
Yeah. Mr. O'Sullivan, you,
Honorable Malema.
okay.
No, Mr. O'Sullivan, it is actually incorrect and unbelievable that you will say you want to come to South Africa and be integrated into the way of living without knowing what was happening in South Africa in the 80s, because the 80s were the most volatile years of our time. There were killings, there were state of emergencies declared. If I'm not wrong, in 86, I think it was declared twice. The youth were on the streets, people being killed. Even at your 20s, there's no way you can escape that point and come here and say, no, I didn't know what was happening. Maybe I was naive. That is incorrect. And then the only thing you're telling us is weather. You call the bodies of our people on the floor weather. Well, that was what was happening at the time. People were being killed. And you wanted to come and join that kind of lifestyle of killing people. Are you not aware that people were being killed at that time when you were applying to become a citizen in South Africa?
I only applied to become a citizen in South Africa in 1994. And I became a citizen in 1995. So it's a reality that I had not applied to become a citizen. And it's also a reality that I have not stated that I did not know what was going on in the country at the time. I knew what was going on, but I didn't know the level of detail that I later found out. Because as you spend more time in a country, you find out more. So, you know, that's my evidence.
But in the letter you wrote, Mr. O'Sullivan, you spoke about the 80s and that you were just 20 and you had no idea, and we can still say maybe you were naive at that time. It can be correct that you're talking about 95. There was an interest in the 1980s. And you were interested in the weather in the 80s, and I'm saying to you, it can be correct. And worse, you didn't have to stay in South Africa to know what was happening in South Africa. There was a big anti-apartheid movement in Britain, in London. Surely you knew the release Nelson Mandela campaign, very prominent in Britain, and you come here and tell us you wanted to come and settle in a country where people are demanding the release of Nelson Mandela, where children are being killed and all of that, because you were naive, you knew a little bit of what was happening. That is unacceptable. I don't think it's an acceptable explanation. You came to our country to become part of the privileged at the expense of the exploited. Will I be correct to make that observation?
Chairman, definitely not correct.
I didn't hear the answer, Chair.
May I request you that when an honorable member asks you a question, you look at them and respond to the question.
Chairman, I'm not able to turn and look without moving my chair. I don't have, because of my spine, I don't have the ability to turn and look that way. Unless I'm given a chair that's got wheels on and I can move it easily, I don't have the ability to turn and look in that direction. So if somebody can provide me with a chair with wheels on that I can move easily, I will be able to turn and look.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Now I can look.
Yeah, I was worried about that because for the earlier part of the morning, you could imagine when honorable members ask you questions and
Now we have a problem, Chair. I have to have a firm back behind me and this thing's moving. I can't lean, I have to be able to lean back without the chair moving.
the chair does not have to move.
Hang on. Oops. Yeah. Yeah, there. There's somebody that understands these chairs is able to fix it so that when I lean back, it doesn't go away like that.
Mr. Mpilo, let's assist. And
No, I don't want to go down. Put it back up again. Ah, that's it. Thank you. Now it's fixed.
is it fine now?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can lean like this without it going over like that.
Can you turn it to my side? Let's see.
Thank you, Chairman.
Can you turn it to that side? Let's see. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, look at Honorable Malema and talk to him.
Afternoon.
Were you done, Honorable Member?
I'd asked the question and then he gave an answer. That's when I said I didn't hear the answer.
Can we proceed?
I didn't get the answer.
Okay.
The answer was that what you said, would that be correct? And my answer, Chairman, was that would not be correct.
Thank you. And then the handwritten letter, do you recognize your handwriting there?
Chairman, I feel that is my handwriting. But as I said, 42 years ago, I'd completely forgotten about it until somebody showed it to me the other day. So, yeah, I believe it is my handwriting.
Let's put it differently. Is that your handwriting on that letter?
I believe it is, Chairman.
Chair, what is the answer now?
There is no answer.
Is that your handwriting on that letter?
I believe that's my handwriting on that letter.
No, I'm not asking about belief. I'm asking about whether that letter is authentic and it's your handwriting that you see on there. You may not remember the content, but surely all of us remember our handwriting.
So I would probably say that is my handwriting.
Thank you. And then lastly, how do you say to us you don't remember who was your commander? Is probably 30 years ago and all of that? Because obvious, every police station in a particular year has got a station commander, has got this, has got that. And those people that we worked with for such a long time, and then giving people certificates that are not recognized by any institution, and giving them awards which you bought from a shop or Discom or something like that. You should remember those people. There's no way you can work with people and achieve these things that you said you have achieved, and you don't remember under whose command. As a person who's trained in military intelligence, a person who has been a reservist without being a citizen in South Africa, and having served for such a long time, There is no way you cannot remember who was a commander of these operations, because the discipline of what you are doing actually requires that you know your commanders.
Thank you, Chairman. I did not say I don't know who was my commander. The station commander in those days was Director Vermaak, and the detective branch commander was a Colonel Badenhorst. So, but I've never said, nobody said to me, who's your commander? And I've never said, I don't remember who my commander was.
No, the question was, these things that you are telling us, is there a person who was commanding you who we can make contact with, who can confirm that indeed these achievements were made? And you said, no, I can't remember, it's 30 years ago or plus. I think it was asked by Honorable James.
Sorry, Chairman. The reality is that I didn't say I can't remember who my commander was. I said I would have to look into it and find out. And if you go back on the record and play it again, you will hear that I said I would have to go and find out who. I don't even know if Director Vermaak is still alive. Our Colonel Badenhorst, I cannot say whether or not he's still around, because with 30 years ago, and with all due respect, I was a lot younger then, and they were a lot older than me. So if I can find somebody, but in the meantime, what I have done to try and evidence what I've said in my affidavit is I've attached some, just some, by the way, there's a lot more newspaper cuttings about the work that we did. And not one of those newspaper cuttings, Chairman, mentioned anything about intelligence services or anything like that. It was all about the successful work that we did and what we achieved in proper policing. Thank you, Chairman.
You see, the problem is going to be when you ask yourself questions and answer your own questions. No one asked you if those people were still alive or not. Whether you are dead or alive, if you have been my commander, I will still mention you as being my commander, and the files will dictate that, of course, the person is still alive or not alive. We didn't ask if your commanders are still alive or not. We asked, who can we reference this thing with, that these things that you are telling us to confirm, maybe your commander or any of the people that might have supervised some of your activities. And I'm happy that without referencing anything, contrary to what you said, I have to reference and check, because some of these people, you were able to give us some names and we can work from there.
And Chairman, it's clear if you look at the letters, which is page A53, it's addressed to the station commissioner at Boyson's SAPS. It says, for the attention of Director Vermaak. And it's signed by J. Schultz, Senior Superintendent, Head of Training. Now, I can go away and find out if there's somebody that still has knowledge of the work that we did back then that can come and say, yes, he did this, or no, he didn't do that, he did this, and what. But it wasn't put to me until now that I should be able to find such a person.
Whip.
No, thanks, Chair. I was very interested to the question that was raised earlier on by Honorable Malema, and I wanted to make a follow-up on it, but in this particular way, Mr. Sullivan. My own understanding, and I may be wrong, is that most of us largely have the value system that defines who we are imparted on us at a very young age. And I mean really in the 10, 15 years, at 20 years from where you were in the 80s, from what I'm hearing, you are already formed as a citizen. That's why you can even want to travel to another country. You are well formed, you understand the environment within which you live in. Now, in the light of the question that Mr. Malema was raising about what appears to have been a level of ignorance or naivety on your part about the country that you were beginning to have a very keen interest to go and work, which is South Africa. How do we reconcile that part? How do we reconcile that with what is said in your statement? Your statement is littered with examples of how you have, over a period of time, 20, 30 years, made interventions to fight against injustice. How do we reconcile that? Because I think you becoming a proponent or a fighter for justice could not have been something that just occurred after 1994. In the early 80s, the way in which injustices was perpetrated in the country, which is what Mr. Malema was raising, should have really said something to you as you were about to decide that I'm traveling to South Africa, in a country where the overwhelming majority of the people, especially from the Black community, were major victims of a white perpetrated system of injustice. How do we reconcile that? If somebody listens to you today and the 20-year-old you then, who, as I said, by that time at 20 years, should have been already imbued with a particular value system about what is right and wrong and what to stand for. That's what I wanted to hear your comment on in relation to that question and that matter.
No, Chairman, it's quite, I would say, a good question. And in some regards, I took a decision probably in my early 30s that actually what I wanted to do was to improve the life of South Africans. And I'm not talking about the white Afrikaners and the white people, but I wanted to improve the lives of Black people in South Africa, because I felt that that was the type of contribution I wanted to make. And I absolutely have some evidence of that here, which we will come to. And I'm satisfied that, well, I'm not, maybe not satisfied, but I accept that in my 20s, my views were perhaps naive. But as life went on, I realized, no, we can improve the lives of people in South Africa, and I can demonstrate that that's exactly what I've done. And I don't want to take away from the evidence leaders, but we will come to that at some point in time. But you know, every person in their life realizes that no matter what you do in life, sometimes your life isn't perfect. Sometimes what you do, you think, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or maybe I shouldn't have felt that way. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or maybe I shouldn't have done that. But you can't change history, but you can change the future. And what I do with my life, certainly over the last 36 years, is I've tried to make South Africa a better country for all its people, especially the previously disadvantaged people. And in that regard, I can demonstrate that I spend a lot of my time and energy and my own personal money in doing that.
Honorable Chief Wibayo.
No, Chair, I wanted to say that the answer has not been adequate, but I'm prepared to live with what has been provided now. And during my tenure, I can expand on this issue so that I don't completely divert the proceedings as led by the evidence leaders. Thanks.
I'm sorry to do this to you, Chair, but also to put it on record that in his affidavit, paragraph 6, he says, I came from the UK to live in South Africa in 1989, because he was trying to create a different impression that he came here in 1995. He came to live here in 1989 and he had business interest here way before 1989. It is in his own affidavit.
Yeah, we will come to that. Just note it down, Mr. O'Sullivan, because...
Yes, Chairman, I didn't say...
No, don't respond.
Okay.
I'm just saying note it down because we now have three dates. We have 1982, the year of the application of your handwritten letter and the letter of Mr. Watterson. there is 1989, there is 1995. Honorable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to emphasize that as well. Hence, when we started, when the evidence leader was asking Mr. O'Sullivan that we agreed that we are disregarding that 1990 issue. Hence, the letter was read for us here that in 1982, he applied for a work permit and the work permit was rejected. And I just wanted to remind him quickly that you remember that, you know, your friend who was an MP, Mr. Watson, what you said just now is contrary to what when he made an application trying to help you to get a work permit in this country, for you to, in fact, a permanent resident, for you to settle permanent in South Africa, that he said that you are the most educated, intelligent, and a very conservative political attitude which you can add to white community in this country. Now, the letter was written to Director General van der Merwe. Do you remember that?
Chairman, I think I've made it clear earlier during intense questioning by the evidence leader that I saw this letter for the very first time the other day.
Yes, but do you agree that the letter is legit?
The letter is what?
Is legit.
Legitimate.
It's legitimate.
It's an authentic document.
I'm not disputing it, but I cannot say anything about it because I never saw it before in my life.
Yeah, so in other words, the context of that letter, do you have any problem with it? That you were an ex-7-man club, that's where you met in the UK with Miss Frank Martin.
When I saw the letter, I never recalled this fellow Waterson, never. When I saw the letter, I immediately raised it with Advocate Kise, and I said, oh, somebody showed me this, but I didn't have a copy of it to show her. And I said, oh, this is probably going to come up.
No, thank you, Chair. When our time comes, we will really transverse on these matters because really they are very important. You know, we can't be misled. And I mean, Mr. O'Sullivan knows exactly what we are talking about here. Since 1982, not 1997 or 1996 or 1990. Thank you.
Honorable Skosana, Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, he asked you whether you are happy with the motivation that is made in that letter for you to get a permanent residence. There is a motivation that you are educated, you are intelligent, you are a conservative, and you are an ex-service officer. You can be very useful to the white community of this country.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that motivation?
No, Chairman.
Okay. Honorable Ngola.
No, Chair, I was actually coming to the very same point that I find the evidence by the witness very much gravely contradictory. You would have made an example of the 1982 thingy, and amidst that, he completely lost his memory when asked and pressed on the issue of the citizenship. When pressed by the evidence leader, I then moved on and spoke about 1987 November. In paragraph 6 is 1989. Then when asked by Advocate Mkhize, it's now 1994 and 1995. So I think it suffices that we follow up that process we said we'll undergo, because if we take what has been argued before us, it's gravely contradictory, and it actually puts a particular image about the credibility of the witness in front of us. But I think we'll endure and try to get to the bottom of it. Thank you very much.
Chairman, I can respond immediately to that. I never said in my affidavit that I became a citizen in 1989. I applied for permanent residence. I only got my citizenship in 1995. And I probably didn't bother putting that in the affidavit, or I forgot to put it in the affidavit, but I can assure you I was a permanent resident. I never became a citizen in 1989. I never had a South African passport until 1995.
Chair, maybe let's take Mr. O'Sullivan on what he has written in his affidavit. The English here is very simple. In 1989, due to my investment in property, I successfully applied for permanent residence as a person of independent means. Successfully applied. That's what the English in your affidavit is saying.
For permanent residence, not for citizenship, for permanent residence. There's a big difference between the two. When you get your ID book, Chairman, your last 3 digits in the ID book, if you're permanent resident, it's my ID number then ended in 185. It now ends in 085 because I'm a citizen.
Let's proceed. Kabazel,
Thank you, Chair.
you have shown us the patience of a mother.
I think I've just broken this.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'd just like to confirm, and also just for the purposes of the record, that Mr. O'Sullivan on Sunday evening did contact me to say that there may be a letter which he did not have in his possession, which I did not have sight of, and certainly did not know the contents of the letter. But he did mention that there's a letter in circulation on social media, but we could not do anything about that letter until we got possession of it this morning. So I confirm that for the record, that you did contact me.
Yes, I contacted you because it made me realize, oh, there's something going on here. I've already done my affidavit. If I'd have recalled what happened 42 years ago, Chairman, I would have included it in my affidavit, but I never expected, but I immediately contacted the evidence leader and discussed it with her.
Okay, so Mr. O'Sullivan, we are now at page 20, at paragraph 21 of your affidavit.
Uh-huh.